Welcome back, everybody. This is Eric here with Iraq Veteran 8888. Today we got some more firearms news for you, so let's get right into it here. This is an article that was written by David Cadria over on firearmsnews.com, and I stumbled across it. I was doing some searching and research, and I thought it was great, and I wanted to share it with you, so I'm going to do a little read on it here. It's called "The New ATF Report Aims at the Same Old Citizen Disarmament Goals." It comes as a little surprise that the disarmament agenda is still a priority within the ATF, especially after the recent unlegislated pistol brace ban. So we're going to get into it. Before we get started, I would like to thank our friends at Pyramid Air for supporting today's video. If you're looking for anything airgun related, they've got fill hoses and tanks and compressors, projectiles, guns, air bows, all sorts of equipment, any and every accoutrement that you might possibly need to shoot your air rifle. Pyramid Air has got you covered. They've got great shipping, great prices, really friendly staff that's very knowledgeable, can help you along the way in your journey to become an airgun owner. They are definitely the go-to people if you're looking for any and everything in the airgun world. Check out their little text deal they've got going on right now. If you text IV8888 to the number below, you'll actually get a nice discount. Okay, so make sure you get in on that, and that lets them know that you've gone over and maybe patronize their company a little bit. So check them out and let them know that we sent you, and a big thanks to Pyramid Air for supporting today's video. All right, we're going to go ahead and get right into this. The most expansive federal report in over 2 decades on guns and crime shows a shrinking turnaround between the time a gun was purchased and when it was recovered from a crime scene, indicating firearms bought legally or more quickly being used in crimes around the country, the Associated Press reports. It also documents a spike in the use of conversion devices that make a semi-automatic gun fire like a machine gun, along with the growing seizure of so-called ghost guns, privately made firearms that are hard to trace. Now, that's coming from the Associated Press. That's just a statement. The report in question is the National Firearms Commerce and Trafficking Assessment, or NFCTA, Crime Guns Volume 2. It covers everything in 7 parts, from the National Integrated Ballistics Information Network with a National Tracing Center overview to gun crimes recovered, both foreign and domestic, firearms thefts, NIBIN and ballistic evidence, and where they're going with all this, recommendations and further enhancements, that is, ways to actualize ATF Director Steve Dittelbach's assertion in the introduction to the report that information is power. That's pretty obvious from the attention he's getting with all of the claims repeated by powerful media groups. They're saturating their readerships with selective information designed to establish a non-existent correlation or causation of interference. And just the day before the AP used its megaphone to give Dittelbach a de facto press release masked as news, he was being quoted by ABC News to, quote, talk about enforcing gun laws amid a surge in mass shootings, unquote. As an aside, note how often our so-called gun rights leaders and NRA A-rated Republican politicians use the same terminology when they oppose new infringements to instead enforce existing gun laws. It doesn't seem out of line to wonder how successful the founders would have been had they urged the redcoats to enforce existing intolerable acts. But naturally, the current infringements are not enough, and Dittelbach admits as much when he adds, there's a lot more that needs to happen. Like what? With the latest mass shooting being exploited happening in California, coincidentally giving top marks by all the leading gun grab groups like Everytown, Brady, and Giffords, how further restrictions and bans aimed at those inclined to obey the law would stop anything is left unsaid. And that's intentional, because those screaming something must be done never have a definite answer for what. With an estimated 393 million guns, there are more firearms than people in the United States. And the problem is continuing to get worse, the ABC News opinion opines, repeating the implication that the problem is the guns and that their numbers need to be reduced. By how much? When will enough be enough? Who decides, and what criteria are they using? The gun grabbers will never answer this because they want them all. That's ultimately what this is all about, and we have admissions on record to that effect from Gun Control Act of 1968 author Senator Thomas Dodd, who wanted the world to say destroy them all, to the founder of what would become the Brady campaign, admitting incrementalism with an end goal to make the possession of all handguns and all handgun ammunition totally illegal. At ATF, our job is to take the rules that Congress has passed, the tools that we have, and do everything in our power to enforce them to protect the community, Dittelbach falsely attests. He's confident that no reporter will challenge him with unequivocal questions that ATF's lawmaking authority. Nor will they press him on arbitrary, inconsistent, and contradictory rules it has no constitutional charter to impose on devices like pistol grips, bump stocks, and frames and receivers. The Fourth Estate, Fifth columnists are all for those bans anyway. On that score, though, Second Amendment advocates argue that such regulation is the purview of the legislative branch mustn't forget that shall not be infringed was specifically intended to be binding on Congress. That means that lawmakers shouldn't be doing it either. A main thrust of ATF's latest is that time to crime between when a gun is purchased and used, it shows up on law enforcement radar, is shrinking, and that reason is because more Americans are buying guns. Even if true, it doesn't alter that the most current firearms trace data still carry a disclaimer. Not all firearms used in crime are traced, and not all firearms traced are used in crime. It also doesn't alter another admission, and since the news report seems to be glooming into California, or glomming, that's a weird word, into California to exploit the latest highly publicized killings, let's look there. The average time to crime is 8.92 years versus a national average of 6.24 years. That hardly seems to support the contention that guns bought within the last few years are major drivers. Still, getting into the weeds of ATF's new report, which curiously categorized pistols, revolvers, shotguns, and rifles on many of its detail charts, but not assault weapons that the Democrats are so hot to ban and confiscate, we do find one other thing that's to be expected. The numbers are dominated by cities that share more in common than just being Democrat-controlled members of Michael Bloomberg's Mayors Against Illegal Guns coalition. Perhaps it's time to consult another study. Murders in the United States are very concentrated, and they're becoming even more so. A new paper by economist and author John Lott of the Crime Prevention Research Center demonstrates. Most countries experience no murders, a smaller subset of countries where there are few murders, and then a minuscule subset of countries where murders are very common. No clear bureaucrat interested in keeping his snout in the public trough will dare admit that, though, since no pandering politician would want to commit political suicide by admitting reality and thus alienating both their string pullers and their constituents. Instead, the push is to do exactly the opposite of what needs to be done, which is separating those proven to be ruthless killers from their potential victim pools until such time as they're no longer a danger and it's safe to let them out again. It's proven violent prisons are still truly dangerous. The late Robert J. Kula made a brilliant observation in his 1973 classic Gun Control, equating their release from prison with opening a cage of a man-eating tiger and expecting a different result. If there's a clear, convincing, admissible evidence that a supposedly restrained party is in danger, how is it responsible to allow such a menace access to the rest of us until such time as it can be established that he's no longer a threat? Does anyone think he couldn't kill with something else? Or noting routine headlines from places like Chicago and Baltimore, he couldn't get a gun? Or why wouldn't he be separated from society after being afforded real due process with all appropriate protections, of course? That's a political non-starter, and that would instead result in the permanent cancellation of any suggesting it. Now endorse no bail funding for nonviolent programs and defund the police and universal background checks, red flag laws, gun-free zones, and assault weapons bans as the solutions to gun violence, and perpetual subset incumbency is assured. So basically you're pandering to your base, and that's allowing you to sort of, kind of keep the political winds in your sails so you can keep getting reelected over and over again. Not that such truth will faze Steve Dittelbach, his ATF, and the prohibitionist politicians wielding it as a club one bit, or the core of legacy media, narrative parrots hanging on and spreading every word. And though lies of omission, They'll make sure evidence contradicting their common sense gun safety laws is confirmed to niche gun owner echo chambers, at least until such times as those can be silenced. So it's very interesting to look at those points. I wanted to share that. I thought the writing was great, and it's real early this morning. I apologize for mispronouncing a few words. It's been kind of a long couple of weeks for me. I hope you'll understand, but I wanted to, kind of comment on it just a bit, and I always thought that his articles are great and pretty well researched and pretty straight to the point, and of course pretty unapologetic, which is the way I tend to kind of look at the Second Amendment as a hands-off sort of thing. I'm definitely zero compromise when it comes to the Second Amendment, and it is kind of scary when you find yourself in an environment where people just want to constantly push the line. They want to step all over your rights. They want to use executive fiat to get these gun control measures passed because they know they can't do it through the Congress. They have to find these little, loophole rulemaking processes and things. And basically they're throwing spaghetti at the wall and saying, well, we're going to let the court sort this out, knowing dang well that the court system is slow, that it takes a lot of time, that it basically allows them to defer it is essentially what they're doing. They are deferring it in a way they're kicking the can down the road and saying, well, we can go ahead and act like we want right now. And then the courts will sort this out. If this is unconstitutional, well then, all right, give it 7 or 8 years or 10 years. You know how long these things take. And in the meantime, we can go ahead and just operate with complete impunity. At least that's their hope. I think that the brace situation is definitely going to get thrown out in court. I don't see how they can do something that affects so many Americans and for items that are in such common use. Common use, I think, is where this is going to fall flat on its face for them, is the common use clause, because they were saying in that one lawsuit that, it was 20,000 tasers in circulation constituted what they considered common use. 20,000? Try 20, 30, 40 million of a certain item. If that's not common use, I don't know what is, right? And the FBI crime statistics and all the FBI data that they collect on firearms uses and crimes, they don't even have braced, pistols or a special category for that type of gun anyway. They don't make the distinction. It's either a shotgun, pistol, rifle, other, right, something like that. So there's just no reality interjected into this situation. It's just all willpower with no legality to back it up other than, well, they just feel like they have the political winds in their sails and they can take off in any direction they want with this particular thing. And it's just not the case. It may have the look of that on the surface, but I think the courts are going to see our way on this, and I just hope that it's going to happen in a soon enough, time frame that people are not going to unfortunately fall victim to this extremely crazy rule. I mean, how many people out there are not going to know what's going on? Maybe they're just a casual gun owner that went into a store and bought a brace pistol at Dick's or Bass Pro Shops or some big box store. Like, you would never go into a store like that and buy a gun and think, that's like the Walmart of outdoors stores. You know what I mean? Like, if you go to Bass Pro, that's like going to Walmart and buying a gun. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with buying a gun at a big corporate place like Cabela's or Dick's or, I guess Dick's doesn't carry guns anymore, but you know what I mean? Like one of the big box sporting goods stores, Academy, whoever, right? There's nothing wrong with going and buying a gun at those places, but it is, it just has that super clean and polished look that, look, if someone was just some soccer mom and went and bought a brace pistol because the salesman at Academy Sporting Goods told them it was a great setup for them, they're not going to know that this is going on. And they're just going to unknowingly be, taking the kids to soccer practice and get pulled over or something, and the cops are going to give them a hard time over it. Now, not every jurisdiction is the same. You do have officer discretion. All right, remember up in Indiana, or no, it was Illinois, where they passed the assault weapons ban, and then over 80 sheriffs sent the governor a letter saying, we're not going to enforce this. So there is a such thing as officer discretion, and what we're seeing is this sort of, slow balkanization of ideas that's occurring, where the large cities with the huge population centers that are super concentrated in the cities, they want strict gun control because they see what happens when you pen a bunch of people up in a small area. People just act different than the way they do out in the rural areas. And then you got the, law enforcement officers out in the rural areas saying, we're not enforcing that. Why would we do that? And, you can't blame them. If they know that their citizens aren't the ones causing problems, then why are they going to stir the pot? Why are they going to put their officers in danger? Why are they going to put their citizens in danger over something that they can clearly demonstrate to their law enforcement officers that this is not an issue where we're at? That this is a regional issue that only affects like certain places in the country. Now, those people, they might want to pass this far-reaching gun control that we all have to follow just because their cities are royally messed up. But that's very unfair to apply a very large bandage to a tiny little bitty wound, right? You don't put a giant elbow wrap on for a little bitty strawberry when you fall off your bike, do you? Right? So put the Band-Aid where it needs to be if that's what you really think. It ain't going to work anyway, but if that's what you think you need to do, then it should only affect you. It shouldn't affect the rest of us who are just trying to live like normal people. So I think there is a big disconnect. There is a incrementalism, a balkanization that's occurring of ideas and thought process. And firearms, unfortunately, are one of those things that are highly politicized, and they're used as a political tool to try to, extract more rights out of the people and to infringe on our rights. And I truly believe that there are way, way, way more people that own guns that are really good, everyday, law-abiding people that are just trying to live their lives than there are criminals that use guns. And I think it's terrible that the CDC hid the information from you. Yeah, that's right. They did. The anti-gunners got with the CDC and got them to hide the defensive gun use statistics off of their website. That's how crazy this goes. That's how far in the pockets of the government the anti-gun cabal really is, and how much money and influence they really have. And that's a hard thing to be up against, right? You're literally fighting a political entity, a political dinosaur that's just eating whatever it sees in its path with no recourse, right? No ability for you to fight them back. And that's a scary idea. It reminds you of living under the Soviet Union over Joseph Stalin, or living under, a communist regime or a totalitarian regime. That's what it has the feeling of. And that's not something we should support in the United States of America, where we're supposed to be citizens with rights and privileges and all that kind of good stuff. I mean, you can't convert a right into a privilege, but you know what I mean. Like, we have rights. So it's scary to see that, in something as clearly worded as the Second Amendment that says shall not be infringed, that the Supreme Court has said is a right of the people, of the individual, right? It is an individual right. And something written so clearly has caused so much of a stir and so much conjecture in the media and in society and in culture and in the legal system, when I don't understand how it could be read any other way. It's so clearly worded. How could it just not be an open and shut deal? But unfortunately, society, has to deal with these situations, and it sucks, but we have to fight it in every way we can and hopefully win it on the legal front, in time. So I hope everybody has a great day. Thanks for tuning in. I really hope you enjoyed this video. Many more reads and articles and things on the way. I wanted to share it. I thought it was great. Thank you so much for tuning in. Many more videos on the way. We'll see you soon.